thing that you found out about why me, what was it?
It was to stop asking why and to start saying, even though this happened, I can be okay. And that's a boss level coping skill. It's defined as radical self-compassion and radical self-acceptance. Like, no, I didn't deserve that, and I don't deserve to keep living in shame. The shame belongs over there with my perpetrators. I'm covered in the blood of Christ, even if I was the perpetrator. I'm living a life of freedom. God helps those who help themselves, and the Spirit of Christ is already within each and every one of us.
Hi, and welcome to another episode and another season of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Here on this podcast, we bring to you voices of women that are out there making a positive impact in their lives, in their family, in the community around them. Women of resilience, women of faith, women who have battled through something, and they are bold enough, strong enough to come back, tell their story, and be a witness and pull another sister through. I am so excited to introduce to you my extraordinary guest, an international speaker, a survivor whose story is both heartbreaking and deeply inspiring. She endured childhood sexual abuse so severe that it affected her brain development. She lived with the mental illness, both with and without help, survived Stockholm Syndrome, and through it all, she has held on to her faith, which has been her pillar of strength. In this episode, she shares her journey of what survival really looks like and how faith and mental health care has shaped her path and what she wants others to know what it's like living with trauma. This is a conversation both of pain, resilience, and hope. Let's get started today with my special guest, Miss Emerson Frost. Hi, Emerson. Welcome to the well. How are you today?
Hi, Leah. Thank you for having me. I'm so good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Emerson. And Emerson, I just want to just thank you so much for when we jumped on before we press record of going through some of our previous seasons, and you have shared so much with me just in 2 episodes that you shared with me that you watch, and you brought me back to what it's all about. You shared one about miracles and falling in love with yourself. And I mean, I'm like, man, I needed to hear that right now. So thank you so much, because miracles and falling in love with yourself is definitely what it's about. So thank you for sharing that with me.
And miracles don't always look how we think they should look.
Come on.
God helps those who help themselves, and the Spirit of Christ is already within each and every one of us. So we have everything we need to face every situation, no matter how difficult it is. And when I was a child, the Bible was weaponized against me to make me compliant in the abuse I was suffering in my home. It was really drilled into me that I was going to go to hell if I displeased my parents in any way. And my father was a predator. My mother was a classic textbook narcissist. So I had no help. And I was born into that. It started as soon as I was born, just the rejection and the abuse. And I am just now in my 40s coming to accept that I'm a person, because I always felt like I was just like a tool that got taken out when I was going to be used, and then ignored and neglected when my parents weren't using me. My mother used me to make us look like we were a normal, happy family because I was a really good kid. I wanted to please her. So nobody knew what was going on behind the doors, because there was just people did know. I found out later on in life that 2 of my aunts did call DCF on my behalf. And when I heard that, I cried because someone had seen me and someone had cared enough to put action behind their love for me. And unfortunately, nothing ever came of it as far as the DSIP case or getting removed from my parents' home. But it was enough to know in hindsight that someone had tried to help me. And with mental health, a lot of times you don't know you're in a depression. You just think that your situation is just so hard and you just can't get over it. But the definition of depression is a sustained sadness where you just can't get past that sadness. And people are afraid of medication because they don't want to get hooked on anything that's going to alter their ability to function or make them too tired. I'm telling you, if you open up and you share that with your provider, I'm on blood pressure medication and allergy pills, and that's what it takes to manage my PTSD symptoms, my hypervigilance, my anxiety, my depression. And remembering that Christ, his spirit is in me, that helps a lot. Like I said, the Bible and religion was weaponized against me as a child, and I believe that I was actually in a cult. When you look at the definition of a cult, it's a one magnanimous leader and everybody else following along. And that's how it was set up. There was one pastor in charge who was like just moving people like pawns from place to place. And my father wasn't the only predator in this cult. There was at least one other sexual predator in this cult too. So when I first started having my flashbacks at age 41, because until I was 41, this was my story. I was raised by two parents who loved me, and I was lucky enough to know Jesus, and I got married and lived happily ever after. But the fact was, I was always having panic attacks. And for me, they looked like fights. So I had been arrested for getting in a fight on an airplane. I had been hospitalized multiple times without any help, and then hospitalized where I did get help. I actually really had positive experiences with hospitalization because they give you the attention that you need, even though you're not the only person in the hospital. You can really, and that's a place where you can trauma dump. You don't have to hide you don't have to disguise any of the words because you need to get it out. And there's the in the United States, there's the phone number 988 for texting. If you feel yourself in crisis, it's a free service. They'll evaluate where you're at mentally and help you choose what your next steps will be, or they'll help you figure out some positive coping skills you could put into place in the moment. Some of them sounded so stupid to me before I started using them, like deep breathing. What you're doing is you're feeding your brain oxygen, so you're allowing it to relax. And I really got interested in the science behind what was wrong with my brain. And then, to God be the glory, I also learned about neuroplasticity. That's where people who have been stroke victims have had brain regrowth even as adults, because God made our brains to heal themselves. Just like when you get a cut, your skin heals itself. And I'm not willing to toy with the idea of being miraculously healed. I'm going to come off my meds, because there was a story that I heard about a man who was fishing and he fell in the river and he was drowning, and a boat came by and offered him help. He said, "No, I'll be okay." And the second boat comes along while he's drowning. He says, "No, God's going to save me." So he goes to heaven and he says to God, "Why didn't you save me?" And God says, "I sent you two boats." So God made humans so intelligent, and modern medicine, even compared to just 10 years ago, what they would have tried to put me on for medication, and being my own advocate and saying, "No, this makes me too sleepy. I want to try something else." And being willing to go to the appointments every 3 months to make sure that I am functioning as a human being instead of as a hurt object. Hurt people hurt people. And I was doing that a lot. With the whole fight or flight responses, fighting was one of mine. I mentioned that a little bit. And even now, if I'm not aware of the way my mind works, I will still get defensive before someone even starts a conversation with me sometimes, and feel like I have to prove like why I'm not stupid.
Right.
So it all starts in here and in here. And I'm lucky enough to believe in the love of Christ, even after all of the horrible things that I've seen the Bible do in people's lives. I can just I can relate to atheists. I can relate to pagans. Blessed be. I can relate to Christians. I can relate to Buddhists and share the message that you can heal. You can heal. You can grow. You can learn what happiness and joy feel like.
Oh my goodness. Emerson, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And just coming out, and talking about that trauma. I think a couple things that you said, but before I get it, no, I'm going to get into it now. You said a lot of things that resemble even myself, and having to confront that childhood trauma that we try to bury for so often. And I'm going to tell you something. I can relate to you when you said that you were living your best life. Like, God, what are you doing? Why is this now starting to come back at a later date? And this is what God, when he brought me to the Samaritan woman, when I looked at the Samaritan woman, I said, this is not me. My life is, amazing. I blocked out all these things in the past. It's never happened. Everything is great. And God reminded me, no, 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 no. You are the Samaritan woman. And I had to face the things that I was running from. And so when I hear you say what you're saying, I can totally relate, because this is what we do as trauma victims. Let me ask you something. How did you first realize the extent of your trauma and the impact that it was having on you in your life and in your brain?
I was homeschooling my kids. I was fostering 2 other kids. I was working part-time in my gym's daycare room. I was keeping myself so busy, and any chance I got, I would just put aside some gas money to go to the beach, because the nice beach is like an hour and a half from me in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I was juggling all of this stuff really well, but I was hiding from myself because I didn't feel worthy. And that was, I have a couple definitions I want to share with you.
Please.
We're talking about the woman at the well. Toxic shame is one that is really big. And the definition of toxic shame is a deeply rooted and pervasive sense of unworthiness and self-loathing that stems from experiences of trauma, abuse, or societal stigma.
Yeah.
There are women everywhere, and men, our brothers and our sisters everywhere, who feel like they're not good enough. They feel that toxic shame, which is not a normal human condition. A
No.
little bit of shame is a coping mechanism to keep us in our groups for survival. We're not, hunters and gatherers anymore, but our nervous systems haven't caught up with that yet.
Yeah.
And we really crave connection. Connection is defined as mutual, genuine understanding, support, and encouragement.
Mm.
And that's where a lot of drug addiction comes into play, because when you're getting that connection that you need with a deep conversation with someone or a hug, hugs have medicinal value.
Absolutely.
Crying emotionally releases hormones that shed your stress. But if you cry because you got hurt, you're in pain, those stress hormones don't come out of your eyes. God's given us so many wonderful ways that we can just let go. And the hard part is letting go.
Mm.
And the big question everybody always has is, why me? Why didn't God stop this from happening to me? Where were you, God? And the thing that I have found to answer that question is not even an answer.
The thing that you found out about why me, what was it?
It was to stop asking why and to start saying, even though this happened, I can be okay. And that's a boss level coping skill. It's defined as radical self-compassion and radical self-acceptance. Like, no, I didn't deserve that, and I don't deserve to keep living in shame. The shame belongs over there with my perpetrators, not with me. I'm covered in the blood of Christ, even if I was the perpetrator. I'm living a life of freedom and my own take on the Bible and Christ. And I don't think Christ ever left me. When I was in the wilderness for 4 years, I was in the wilderness from the time I had my first flashback, driving down the street in the car, doing my own thing. And then all of a sudden, here's these horrible acts coming into my mind that I had lived through. I called my husband. I was like, I don't know what's happening right now, but I'm remembering X, Y, and Z. And he went through all of these flashbacks with me. I had to sleep on the floor because just the thought of being in the bed made me feel violated. My husband couldn't even hug me because I was just all of those years from age 0 to 15 of being violated and used and neglected. It all came to a head, and I had a good therapist. Actually, when I first had my big reveal, I call it, would split time in half for my life before I knew and after I knew. I call it my big reveal. And for other people, I refer to it as a dumpster fire. And so the book I'm writing is called Life's a Dumpster Fire, Now What? And it's got radical acceptance, radical self-compassion, toxic shame. There's one called Practice the Pause. When your feelings come and you would normally get overwhelmed, if you feel your heart rate increase, if you feel your shoulders tighten, if something's happening in your mind that you're uncomfortable with, I would strongly encourage you practice the pause and say, what feeling is this and where is it coming from? And then you use that information to nurture your inner wise woman instead of allowing your inner critic to run the show, and learning that you have the power to turn the volume up on your inner critic and turn it down. And that self-acceptance was really just a choice I had to make. It just had to come down to a choice of like, I would never talk to anybody else in the world the way I talk to myself in my head.
Come on.
I'm going to treat myself better because I'm the daughter of a king.
Yeah. I love everything that you were saying, and it is so true. You said a couple of things about how like the woman, you didn't say this, but the woman at the well, the enemy so strategically placed her or put her in this into this shame and this guilt and this condemnation that she didn't want to be around the other women for whatever reason. I mean, I researched this story of the woman at the well up and down, backwards and forward. No one really knows the true story. Why she was an outcast. Yes, she had several husbands, but back then, last I checked, women weren't able to divorce, right? So she had to be divorced. They didn't speak of any children that she had. She could have went through childhood trauma that kept her from wanting to be active with. Yeah, but there's so many different things. I looked this up because God kept bringing me to the woman at the well, but the woman at the well was separated from her other sisters. She was shunned out. She probably felt that she couldn't share. She probably felt like she was in this state of shame and rejection. When God began to show me these things, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. And I created a world outside of the well that I was comfortable with. Yeah, it may have been hot. Yeah, it may have been, but I created this world outside the well, away from community, away from people. And God brought me back and it's like, no, now I'm going to heal you out here. And I'm going to send you back in to be a witness. And that's what he did with the woman at the well. So I'm listening to you. So, oh my goodness. I love the things that you were saying. I want to ask you about this dumpster because when we think about a dumpster, it's full of stuff, right? It's full of things that we put away, we are done with. Talk to me about when this dumpster fire activates. What's going up in flames at that moment?
Reality as you know it. Maybe you're getting divorced from the love of your life because you can't come together on parenting techniques, or maybe one of the spouses has spewed so much of their pain onto the other spouse that they have no more mental capacity for it, no matter how much they love their spouse. Maybe you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness. Maybe your parents are deteriorating right in front of your eyes and you're powerless to do anything about it. My cousin lost two of her children predeceased her. And everybody has a dumpster fire at some point in their life, whether they want to recognize it as one or not. You've probably seen the meme where there's the dumpster fire and then there's the guy sitting at the table drinking coffee, just kind of like ignoring their life going up in flames.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, we can practice the pause. We can face our feelings. We can embrace ourselves with the love of a mother. I was being a mother in real life to two children, but I didn't know the proper way to do it. I didn't realize that just because I was here with them physically, that was not connecting with them the way that they needed. And we're in a healing process right now. My whole family is in a healing process.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to it. And we're just having more fun together. And we're doing family therapy once a week because that gives everyone equal footing.
Yeah.
And you can say what you need to say and you'll have at least one advocate on your side.
Yeah. At least one. I love it. And okay, so this is what it's all about. And I feel that it is so important, even though what you said about going through it and God has brought you through it, delivered you from it. And now he's making you a curse breaker because you are putting it out there. You're saying, no, this stops with me. And I love the fact that you are giving your children a voice because I know I grew up in a home. I didn't have no voice. A voice? What does that mean? So I love the fact that you are giving your children a voice. And I think this is something that I started in my family too. You get a voice. Now, I don't know what we're going to do with it here, but
I think you mentioned that you were starting with the gentle parenting.
I did.
Yes. Me too.
I'm doing it. I mean, I'm hanging in there. It's been tough, but you know what? It's working. My kids now have such a big opinion that I'm like, I created a monster, but I did it. I am changing this generational. I'm not going to call it a curse, but I'm turning it into a generational blessing.
Generational behavior, you called it in one of your previous podcasts.
Thank
that's
you.
one of my whys. Like when I was asking, why did my parents do this to me? I found out that my father had it done to him. I found out that my mother's mother, my mother's grandmother had it done to them. I strongly suspect my mother's just in denial like I was because she grew up in a home where one of her brothers became a predator and she married two predators. So I have to meet her at her level.
Yeah.
She's only capable of so much functioning, but she's still so impressive because what she has that she can use, she's spreading the light of Christ everywhere she can. And forgiving her has really been a thing that I did not want to do at all. I even tried to have her arrested. I went to the police. I gave a very detailed and graphic description. I gave them all the addresses where the events happened. I gave them my ages. I gave them the witnesses' phone numbers who had called DCF. And I laid it all out there, hoping for some vengeance, hoping for justice. I even made a little cover story for my Facebook, Justice for Emerson. Because it just was so unfair. And she doesn't deserve my forgiveness, but it's not. I'm tired of being angry. And that was the last little bit of the anger I was holding on to. My father passed away decades ago, so there's no justice there.
Yeah.
But I can still have peace.
Yeah.
And I can learn to do it even in the midst of my dumpster fire.
I talk about this all the time, Emerson, and you said it, and I want to talk to you about this. And I always say it's the F word because this is the word that I still have to remind myself. Remember, in the Bible it says your flesh has to die daily. And that F word, that forgiveness, am I able to forgive. And I have to forgive every day. Every day, anytime those thoughts come in your mind, can I forgive? Because we must have a clean heart. We must let all that go so God can work through us. He can use us. Talk to me about this forgiveness.
God also allows us to set boundaries with people in our lives.
Absolutely.
So I get triggered still by my mother. And so I have a boundary in place where I have no communication with her. That boundary is there because I need it.
Yeah.
But the anger piece of it, I can let go of. So as long as I don't see her ever again.
Look, it was like I'm still in the oven. I'm still being worked on.
I am.
And that's okay. And that is okay. I say it all the time. Our healing process looks different. Can I still be in the same room? Can I move it in love? And if I can't, then I can't. There are certain things that even to this day I still can't do, or still can't say, or still can't be in the midst of, until I know that I am healed. You talk about that fight or flight mode. I don't know what I might do. So I'm going to set that boundary and make sure I'm not in that place until God continue. I'm still in the oven. I'm still being worked on, right?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
That is okay. I make a conscious effort every day. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to do this F word and not the other one. I'm going to forgive. Forgive. Man, I wrote a book, Woman Witness. I wrote a lot of books, but Woman Witness is the first one that God led me to write, based on the Samaritan woman, and he told me that was me, and I found that I was her. And then I also wrote Woman Witness, Restoration at the Well. And that's where God began to show me that he could put me back together again. Because you talking about a dumpster, he then blew me all the way up. I was fine. Now I'm a mess. But he told me, I want to restore you.
Yes.
I want to teach you. I want to introduce you to me without the spiritual manipulation, which is something that I was a victim of as well. Come on, Emerson. Look. Okay, I want to talk about, let me calm down. I want to talk about this Stockholm Syndrome. A lot of people talk about it, but a lot of people really don't know what it is. So talking about the Stockholm Syndrome and how it affects your sense of identity in relationships.
Sure. Stockholm Syndrome is feelings of trust and affection created between the victim and the captor. It's a form of denial where you form a bond with your captor or your abuser. And I had that going into my flashbacks where I just thought, maybe my dad had been a little inappropriate every once in a while, and I was okay.
Yeah.
So, denial is a big word. It's when people refuse to believe something is true, even when presented with evidence. One of my uncles, I had called him and asked him, why didn't anybody do anything for me? How could you just watch this happen? And he said that even if he had said something, we all would have stuck by my father because all of us had that Stockholm Syndrome.
Wow.
Yeah. Denial is such a big tool. And there are so many people that are using it, and it's really sad because it takes away from the present moment. It takes away from the reality of the good things in your life. It makes you hyper focus on fear of it. What if it happens again? And that's where
that anxiety comes from, right?
pause. We practice the pause. We put on the mind of Christ, which is peace, love, joy, wholeness. God created us whole. And yes, we do break. We do get broken. But God is so gracious. In Japan, if a piece of pottery gets broken, they fix the cracks with gold and they continue to have it as an object of value. Just because something's broken doesn't mean it's to be discarded. It can be fixed. It can be repaired. It can be made to be worth more. And when God fixes us, he fills our cracks with his Holy Spirit, which is this unstoppable force of freedom. I always thought that religion was like rules and failure and not being good enough. And unfortunately, one of my children has that experience with their relationship with God because I didn't know that that was toxic. I didn't realize that the love of Christ and the punishment for being evil, like the love of Christ outweighs the punishment every time. And it even says in the Bible that God wants every single one of us to come to know him. And that's why he hasn't come back yet, because he doesn't want anybody left out.
I keep hearing in John 4, he said, I'm going to pour out my spirit in amongst all your sons and your daughters, and your, what does it say? The old man will have dreams and your young men will prophesy, right? Remember that part? And you're absolutely right. And I do believe he's definitely come back. And right now he is pouring out his spirit. They're the people who are cracked, the people who are broken, he is using. He's already filled our cracks with his Holy Spirit. Come on, Emerson, you better teach us today. Calm down, look. And we are prophesying, and we are sharing our stories. We are being witnesses that are healing and shaping so many lives. I want to ask you, looking back, what was the key moment that helped you recognize that you deserve freedom and healing?
I was in the stupor after my big reveal, and I called. In Connecticut, we have a phone number, but now nationally you can call 988. And I had called them and I was like, listen, I just really feel like I'm going to hurt myself. And I hung up because they weren't helping me. And then I called a pastor and he said, I can't help you. So I hung up and I called 741-741 is the crisis text line, and you get a free crisis counselor right there in the moment, and that's the person for you to trauma dump on. You just text 741-741 or 988, and that's where you can just be like, bleh. Because your friends love you so much, and for them to see that level of pain in you hurts them, and they might pull away without meaning to.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That is
Wants
really
us to
good.
take it to him, and he's given us helpers all around the world. He's given us the people in the boats coming to rescue us.
Yes, let's go.
So what happened was I had just started speaking my truth. I was like, this is what my father did to me. And the police and the ambulance people, because when you hang up on them, they have to come and do a safety check.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like, we're so sorry you experienced this. And no one had ever said that to me before. And they made me feel like I wasn't crazy, like I wasn't making it up. It really was as horrific as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And the compassion that the hospital staff shared with me and the police shared with me was like, okay, now I can talk about this. Now I can get this out. So when I was in the hospital, I did a lot of talking. And when I first had my big reveal, I didn't have health insurance, is a point I was trying to make earlier and I had forgot. So I looked and I Googled like free counseling, and I found a free counselor, and she wasn't the best, but she was someone. And then I got health insurance and I went on psychologytoday.com. You can pick them by their gender, by their race, by their religion, by the town they're in, by what type of therapy they offer you. And I found a guy who was experienced with my big diagnosis is dissociative identity disorder, which is a fancy term for multiple personality disorder. And I had to get this gentleman who had experience with my problem, and he successfully helped me merge a lot of my personalities. And so my inner conflict between my hurt little girl, my angry teenager, and then my grown wise woman, that conflict inside of me is now subsided so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Emerson.
So I would just encourage people, just take one step, make one text, make one phone call, reach out to one friend. And you will get the help you need if you don't stop looking. God has rowboats all over the world for everybody.
I'm going to tell you, you said something that I think a lot of people, especially a lot of us, if you have been a victim of childhood trauma and you deal with this, people see who you are now. Your life looks perfect. What do you mean? But you're holding in all of this stuff that you're carrying around. And I think one thing that you said that a lot of us need to understand is that you have to get that out. You cannot, it's not meant to stay inside. And to hear someone say, I'm sorry, I believe you. You're not alone. And like, what did you said earlier, give you, that acknowledgement goes a long way. And I feel that if you are, as Emerson said, I believe you said 7499. Tell me them.
741
741 741 and then 988. If
Yes.
you are experiencing that, you just have to get it out. Get it out.
Yes.
Get it out now. Don't hold that in, because it's only meant to weigh you down and keep you from walking in the fullest authority that God has already given us. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you about DID. Let's call it DID, right? I want you to talk to us a little bit about this. I know that a lot of people, we hear like the multiple personalities, right? And we hear about mental health. When did you feel that everything is finally making sense for you after you had your meeting with this with the therapist or a counselor who helped you identify it?
I actually felt like everything was going to be okay right in the beginning, because I was still following Christ at the time of my big reveal. I was in shock, physical shock, for 3 days. And then I spent 24 hours vomiting, and I couldn't stop vomiting. And then day 4 and 5, or 5 and 6, I just sat on my couch with the fireplace and a blanket and worship music. And I just cried and cried, because I knew that I had something to rely on that was bigger than myself. And then each person that I came in contact with added a little bit more faith and good people out there. Mr. Rogers' mother always told him that the world is a scary place, but look for the helpers. It's what you fix your eyes on. It's if you look at your problems, or if you look at the fact that you can be better. And you can be better.
You can be better.
If you're a Christian, you're allowed to have mental health challenges. You're allowed to have diabetes. You're allowed to have cardiovascular disease. You're allowed to just accept your body where it's at, meet yourself where you're at, and let God do the rest.
Amen. And when you said that you sit on the couch and you sat there with a blanket and worship music, and it just reminded me so much of where there is light, darkness cannot exist. And so when you are playing that worship music, even if you don't even feel it, there's light coming in, and darkness has to flee. Let me calm down. I have to calm down. What scriptures or prayers or do you lean into that has been most meaningful for you during your healing process?
Little snippets here and there, like I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to cause you harm.
Yeah.
I had to come to terms with the fact that God wasn't responsible for the human choices that affected me. That was a big piece, was letting go, because someone had to pay. Someone was to blame. And if not God, who's in charge of everything and does miracles, then who else can I blame? Well, the perpetrator is the one who made those choices because of free will.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can let the bitterness, I was bitter for like 2 years, and it just eats me inside. I was just like, oh, I was treated so rotten. And how can people like my mom? And don't they know what she's really like? And here it is so many decades later. And I'm just processing it. But that was part of it too, was taking the blame and putting it on the perpetrator instead of putting it on God.
That's so, when you just said something that brought me through a a time in my life when God began to blow my whole little world up, set my dumpster on fire. Um, and I went through this state. I was mad. I was angry. I was dealing with everything that I didn't know how to deal with before. And I got someone not introduced me, but showed me Joyce Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this lady helped change my life so much. I found myself relating to her in so many ways of how I sat in this place of pity, and I was angry and I was mad, and I needed people. I felt like, what's wrong with you that you don't realize that I'm hurt?
Yeah.
Why are you moving about your life after knowing what I've been through? Right. And I couldn't accept the fact that, ultimately go forward, move on, until I started reading Joyce Meyer's books and listening to her. And she began to show me that there was a way that I can, with God, get myself up out of this pity, pull myself up and push and fight through and find out who I am in Christ. So when you are saying these things, I relate to it. And this is what this is what happens when that dumpster goes up in flames. Come on. I can't wait for you to finish that book. I want to ask you something. How would you encourage someone who has these moments of darkness, moments of rage, moments of weakness that hit you like that, like I do? How would you encourage someone?
Your feelings are all so 100% valid. So invite them in, listen to what they have to say. Why are you feeling angry and bitter? Well, because I was used in such a horrific way. Oh, well, that makes sense. You have permission to feel anger. And then it fades once it's been addressed internally. Or like, I'm going to be on this podcast later today. Oh, my anxiety is up. Okay. Anxiety excitement is different from anxiety panic, but it feels the same in my body. So just talking to myself and seeing what it is. There's a story of the Buddha Siddhartha where he invites this demon that throws fiery darts at him in for tea. And as the demon is throwing the fiery darts at him of anger, resentment, bitterness, envy, he's just processing them and they become lotus flowers in his hands. And we do that with our thoughts and we do that with our pain. We transform our pain. And you can do it without Christ. You can absolutely have a wonderful healing journey without Christ. But it's like having a sixth gear in your car. You don't need sixth gear. But when you've got sixth gear, baby, now it's time to move.
Got it. Oh, that's good. Trying to process it in our own flesh and our own will and our own spirit. You're not going to get that far. You'll end up back at square one, but you know what? Move in the way that you want to move and God will meet you where you are. I love that. That's good. Emerson, I want to ask you, what led you to start sharing your story, start speaking internationally?
Because when I started whispering to my friends, I had this flashback. This is what happened to me. Every time I spoke about it, I heard me too. I heard so many me toos. It's from men and from women that it had happened to them.
Wow.
And the solidarity of knowing that I wasn't the only person that had gone through that. One of the things that I really don't like is when people compare their trauma to mine and they're like, well, mine's not as bad as yours was. I'm like, trauma's trauma.
Yeah.
So you might still feel like yours is like you're not ready to embrace it all the way and unpack it all the way. And just because I am unpacking my trauma doesn't mean that, we can't be friends.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it takes
Yeah.
time. It takes
Yeah.
time.
I love that. And you know what, Emerson, I think it helps other people heal, because to see that you were able to go and talk about your trauma lets that person who only takes the pillow and screams in it by themselves in the dark and then puts on their makeup and go about their business. Lets them know that, you know what, I can too probably let this go. Get this weight up off of me. I don't have to carry it. Emerson's doing it. I can do it too.
Yes, I started a blog 6 days after my big reveal so that I wouldn't forget what it was like to be in that moment. I didn't want to come to a place where I'm mentally stable, emotionally stable, spiritually stable, and then forget about my brother or my sister who was just starting their own healing journey.
Yeah.
Humans need connection.
Yeah.
That's what drug addiction is all about. It's chasing the oxytocin. But with the drug addiction, it has negative consequences quite clearly, and it's not a positive coping skill. So learning to look for the oxytocin in a friend and a mentor instead of in drugs, that's life changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love the blog. I love keeping a book of remembrance of where you were, and I love it all because God has brought you from somewhere and it's always good to check back. What reactions have surprised you the most besides hearing Me Too from your audience?
I was really surprised when my biological family called me a liar and they kicked me out of the family.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's another twist.
My mother was living with us at the time because I wanted to please her and be the good daughter. And of course, you can live with us and you don't have to be alone. And I had to ask her to leave because she was coming into the kitchen with her journal, crying at my kitchen table while I'm putting away dishes that she feels like her marriage was a fraud. I'm sorry, but this is my space and I need my space right now for my healing. And that doesn't include any space here for you right now. And she's such a narcissist. You know what she did? She was gone that same day. And then she was telling people that I kicked her out and she had to get married.
Oh,
And that was on top of my brothers calling me a liar.
oh,
That was really hard. Because I was hoping that they would stand by me.
yeah.
So I had to focus on the people that were feeding into my hope and saying, you're doing a good job. I have an uncle and his wife, they reach out to me from time to time and they just say, you're doing a good job. Your husband's a great guy. Because that was one of the first things that I worried about was what if I accidentally married a perpetrator because of my denial and my brain not being where it needs to be. So I started watching my husband and he didn't get under the covers with my kids when he would tuck them in at night. He never made jokes or about patting them on the butt inappropriately or anything like that. They punch him and they kick him and he'll like play fight with them.
Yeah.
But he's never been inappropriate. And
Yeah.
I was really, really grateful for that because honestly, the only reason I can call myself a generational breaker is because I got lucky and I married a good guy. My kids could have had the same story as me, but that was one of the ways God protected me. Another way God protected me was when I was in my 20s, I was living in a drug house and I never tried anything that they had coke, they had crank, they had heroin, they had pills. And I never had a desire to try any of that. God kept me from drug addiction.
Wow.
That same house I was living in, they had made a deal for me to go and do a sexual act with another gentleman so that they could get drugs. And I didn't even care that I was going to do that for drugs. And in the car, the gentleman called and he canceled. So God saved me from prostitution. He saved me from drug addiction. He saved me from 3 suicide attempts, 3 suicide, like really in it all the way. Like it's over. I'm done.
Wow.
He saved
Wow.
me 3 times.
Wow.
And he taught me how to save myself because he's in me. And it's our responsibility to pull ourselves together, but it's our privilege to allow his hands to hold us up while we rise.
Oh my gosh. Emerson, come on and be a witness. I'm like crying back tears. Oh my gosh. To be able to see the handprint of God in your life.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And I'm sorry that you had to endure, the ones closest to you, push you away and say it's not true. That's the hardest. But that's what happens. How do you prepare yourself mentally and emotionally before speaking? I know it's supposed to be so many nerves and jitter and anxiety. Am I good enough? Are they going to receive me? How do you prepare yourself?
I remind myself that I was a victim, but today I'm a victor. I was a victim. I became a survivor, and then I became a thriver, and then I became a victor. And, it's bouncing around from day to day on where you land on that. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I had to do was to find some self-esteem. And as stupid as it sounds and as hokey pokey as it sounds, listening to positive affirmations on YouTube for free as I was falling asleep, because I couldn't listen to it during the day. I would get so angry, like, I'm not smart. I'm not beautiful. Stop telling me you're trying to brainwash me.
Yeah.
And so I would listen to it when I was falling asleep.
Yeah.
And I would wake up the next morning and smile and just have this lightness. So there's tools everywhere, free tools everywhere. Just search, search, search.
Yes, feed yourself. Okay, so what message do you hope to leave by to those who are listening to us right now?
You're going to keep going around in a cycle until you face your pain. Find someone that will hold your hand and sit with you in the darkness as you remember your own light.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So for those who are listening and those who are touched by your story today, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they book you to speak at their next event or at a youth home or somewhere? Where can they find you?
emersonfrost.org. It
And
has the links to all my socials.
perfect.
And it has links to all these resources and articles on radical acceptance, articles on imposter syndrome, which is an irrational fear that causes someone to doubt their own abilities and worth.
Yeah.
And learning that that's not how God wants you to think. He wants you to have a healthy mindset. A little bit of fear is healthy. A little bit of anxiety is healthy. But if you're finding yourself not being able to leave the house, I would encourage you to reach out to 741-741 or 988 and just say, hey, this is why I don't feel like I can leave my house. They have resources to share with you.
I love that so much. Emerson, if you can tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to myself for going through that.
Mm.
And that's a tip I want to give people if they ever run into a friend or a loved one that has experienced trauma. The most important thing you could do is make them feel heard. I'm sorry you experienced that is the perfect phrase.
Yeah. I want to ask you one more thing. I wasn't going to say this, but I feel like it's important because you said one of the things that you experienced when you found out that that people did know and that your aunts or your aunts did call the authorities. If you are someone right now and you suspect something is happening, what is the best approach?
The best approach is to write down why you suspect someone of unhealthy habits or harmful behavior towards others and take it to the authorities. I had a situation where one of my children was running away from a man at a church and he kept trying to hug her despite her very clear signals and her screaming no.
Yeah.
So afterwards, I went to the police station and I told them exactly what had happened because if he was a perpetrator, what if he was a perpetrator? At least now there's a clue for the next person who has an incident with this man. And that's when I decided, you know what? I'm standing up for my little girl. I'm going to stand up for my inner little girl. And I went and filed a police report on my own abuse to empower myself. Unfortunately, seeking justice didn't work, but living in a life of grace is such a peaceful way to be.
I love that. Thank you for letting us know that and giving us your thoughts on it, because I do think it's super important, and make sure that we're handling it the right way, especially for some of us who've had trauma. We kind of know, sadly to say, we kind of know some of the signs to look for, but at the same time, you want to be sensitive to know that, just because that was your experience doesn't mean that it's someone else's. So I'm glad that you brought a little bit of light to it. And, I love what you're doing, Emerson, and I love how you're doing it. When I first got introduced to all this, when God started waking me up and I wrote my first books, Little Girl and Little Boy's Treasure Chest. And it was so little people can know that this is my treasure and I don't have to share it. And I think that's a message that needs to go out, that everybody needs to know. And doesn't matter what age you are. So Emerson, thank you for coming in, pouring at the well. Thank you for reminding us of our own treasure and to remind us that we can do something even after the fact. And vengeance belongs to God. He's going to use you and continue to use you in a mighty way to affect and change many lives. So keep being a witness, Emerson.
I'm here for it.
Emerson, let me go ahead and just give you one more thought to leave with our listeners to take with them throughout the week.
Sure. You are beautiful, you are perfect, and you are whole, just the way you are.
Love it. On that note, thank you, Emerson, for coming and pouring at the well. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. I'm your host, Leah Fortier, and perhaps you were chosen for such a time as this to write, to tell your story, your truth. Until next time, bye-bye.